Before Nazi Germany made racial science synonymous with mass murder, American officials had already given eugenics something powerful: institutional respectability. In universities, hospitals, legislatures, and courts, influential Americans turned prejudice into data, and data into government policy. Eugenics was the scientifically erroneous attempt to control human reproduction according to ideas about inherited worth. Francis Galton coined the term in Britain in 1883. Advocates later spoke of encouraging people they considered desirable to have children, while preventing those they labeled undesirable from reproducing. The theory treated complex conditions and behaviors as though they followed simple rules of inheritance. Poverty, disability, criminality, alcoholism, intelligence, and even morality could be placed on a family chart and described as biological destiny. These categories did not merely reflect science. They absorbed existing beliefs about race, class, gender, immigration, and disability. In the United States, eugenics attracted support across several professions and institutions. Scientists, physicians, public health officials, educators, philanthropists, reformers, and government actors did not all agree on every policy, but enough accepted eugenic thinking to turn it into an organized movement. At Cold Spring Harbor in New York, Charles Davenport established the Eugenics Record Office with private financial support. Its staff collected questionnaires and family histories, trained field workers, and drew pedigree charts. Researchers cataloged supposed inherited traits such as feeble-mindedness, criminality, and alcoholism. Historians have shown how vague labels like these could convert limited education, poverty, disability, or social nonconformity into evidence of hereditary defect. Then the state acquired the power to act on those judgments. In 1907, Indiana enacted the first American state law authorizing eugenic sterilization. More than 30 state legislatures eventually enacted coercive sterilization laws. Procedures often targeted people held in state institutions, where a hearing or signature did not necessarily amount to informed, voluntary consent. The patterns differed across places and decades, but institutionalized and disabled people, poor people, and marginalized racial and ethnic groups bore disproportionate harm. The movement's most infamous legal victory began with Carrie Buck. As a teenager, Carrie became pregnant, by her account, after she was raped by a nephew of her foster family. She was committed to Virginia's state colony for epileptics and feeble-minded. Officials selected her case to test the state's new sterilization law. They claimed Carrie, her mother, and her infant daughter Vivian represented 3 generations of hereditary feeble-mindedness. The case reached the Supreme Court in 1927. By a vote of 8-1, the court upheld Virginia's law. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. ended the majority opinion with a sentence that exposed the cruelty beneath the legal language. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. The evidence behind that claim was deeply compromised. Carrie's school records showed normal progress before she was withdrawn from school. Her supposed defense was part of litigation arranged to preserve the law, and Vivian later earned a place on her elementary school honor roll before dying at age 8. The ruling removed a major constitutional obstacle and gave legal validation to state sterilization programs. By the 1970s, at least 60,000 people had been involuntarily sterilized under state eugenics laws. Incomplete records and differing definitions make an exact total impossible. Sterilization was only one way eugenic ideas entered policy. Eugenic restrictionists claimed that immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe were biologically inferior to people from Britain and Western Europe. Their arguments helped shape and legitimize the Immigration Act of 1924, alongside nationalism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, labor politics, and older campaigns for exclusion. The act set national origins quotas at 2% of each nationality's population recorded in the 1890 census. That formula favored Britain and Western Europe, while sharply restricting Southern and Eastern European immigration. It also extended the racial exclusion system that already restricted Asian immigration, effectively barring immigration from Asian countries and excluding Japanese immigrants. American eugenics also had an international audience. Harry Laughlin, a leading figure at the Eugenics Record Office, published a model sterilization law in 1922. German eugenicists studied American programs closely. Before 1933, they saw the United States as the world leader in eugenic sterilization. After the Nazis took power, Germany enacted its law for the prevention of offspring with hereditary diseases. The law was based in part on American practice, and its targeted categories closely resembled parts of Laughlin's model. Some American eugenicists welcomed the German program. In 1936, Heidelberg University awarded Laughlin an honorary degree. Under Nazi rule, approximately 400,000 people were forcibly sterilized, a scale far beyond the American programs. That influence must be described precisely. The United States did not create Nazism, and American eugenics alone does not explain the Holocaust. Germany had its own history of racial hygiene, colonial violence, anti-Semitism, nationalism, and European race theory. The Nazi state fused and radicalized these currents into racial persecution, forced sterilization, medical murder, and genocide. But American law supplied precedent. It showed that a modern government could classify human beings, restrict immigration, and prevent reproduction while presenting coercion as science and reform. The defeat of Nazi Germany discredited the word eugenics, but it did not immediately end coercive sterilization in the United States. Virginia continued operations until 1972. Indiana repealed its law in 1974, and California's formal statute remained until 1979. As formal programs waned, coercive or inadequately consented sterilizations continued in other settings. A federal investigation published in 1976 reviewed 4 Indian Health Service areas. It found that those areas generally failed to follow the agency's sterilization regulations, and that most consent forms examined did not meet requirements. That finding does not mean every procedure was forced. It does show how reproductive control could persist under new institutions and language. Several states later apologized. North Carolina and Virginia created compensation programs for some surviving victims. Yet the Supreme Court has never expressly overruled Buck v. Bell, even though later decisions and constitutional doctrine sharply narrowed the legal space for compulsory sterilization. The lesson is not that genetics is inherently dangerous. Modern genomic science rejects the crude inheritance claims and ranked racial types promoted by eugenicists. The warning is about what happens when scientific authority joins unequal power, and when the state claims the right to decide whose lives should continue. American eugenics did not begin with one villain or one political party. It advanced through respected institutions, professional ambition, philanthropy, paperwork, and law. Its advocates called coercion progress. Its victims lived with the consequences. That is how prejudice acquired a pedigree chart, entered the courthouse, and received an official signature.